3 weeks into this conflict, the largest military force in history has encountered a problem it cannot simply bomb its way out of. Despite thousands of airstrikes and the high-profile elimination of leadership targets, the Iranian military has not moved from its original positions. The traditional strategy of overwhelming dominance is meeting a wall of asymmetric resistance. In the Strait of Hormuz, Iran changed the geography by laying mines throughout deep-water channels far from their coastline. To avoid these explosives, commercial tankers must detour toward the mainland, forcing ships to seek Iranian permission to pass or risk coastal strikes. This bottleneck has pushed oil past $100 a barrel. If the strait remains contested, prices could climb toward $150, creating a massive supply chain shock. By mining the deep water, Iran has secured an economic chokehold. It is a strategic move that traditional naval power cannot counter without triggering a global depression. On the water, the tactical situation has forced a retreat. American aircraft carriers must now stay 700 to 1,000 kilometers away from the Iranian coast. At closer ranges, these multi-billion-dollar ships are exposed to ballistic missiles and drone swarms. Ballistic missiles are rockets that launch high into the atmosphere before dropping their warheads at extreme speeds, making them difficult to intercept. This zone of overlapping threat is what planners call a kill box. It's an area where Iranian coastal defenses are dense enough to saturate and destroy even the most advanced warships. The U.S. is currently responding by using B-2 stealth bombers to drop heavy ordnance on inland targets. While the physical damage to Iran is significant, it hasn't stopped the drone launches or the blockade. The sheer size of America's military assets has become their biggest weakness. These massive ships are too expensive to lose, which means they are now too vulnerable to use in the very place they are needed most. Iran is also expanding the conflict's cost by targeting America's regional allies. Instead of a direct fight with the U.S. Navy, they are focusing on the infrastructure that powers the Gulf economies. Financial projections show the damage. Gross domestic product, or GDP, the measure of a country's total economic output, is expected to shrink by 14% in Qatar and Kuwait. The UAE is projected to hit -5% growth. These losses have created a desperate internal logic for Gulf leaders. They are privately urging Washington to escalate the bombing, fearing that any Iranian victory would leave them under permanent regional intimidation. This pressure is mounting alongside Israel's campaign in Lebanon, where over 1 million people have been displaced. The entire region is now being squeezed by multiple overlapping wars. For America's partners in the Middle East, the cost of the U.S. military presence is now being measured in double-digit economic collapse. The lack of transparency on the ground has fueled digital rumors that Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is no longer alive. Speculation suggests his recent public appearances are actually generated by AI, software that can create hyper-realistic but fake videos of people. In Washington, critics have coined the term TAFU, Trump always fucks up, to describe an administration that seems unable to find a coherent diplomatic exit. This perceived lack of a plan has triggered a collapse in international support. Canada officially announced it will not take part in any offensive operations against Iran. That list of refusals is growing. Japan faces internal protests, France is withholding its ships, and the UK declined sending warships. NATO has been even more direct, distancing the alliance from the conflict and describing the entire situation as an American mess that they have no intention of joining. The diplomatic isolation is now nearly total. Washington is finding that its traditional allies are no longer willing to follow it into a war that lacks a clear objective or end date. Without a way to win or an easy way to leave, the psychological pressure on the U.S. administration is becoming public. They are losing the ability to project an image of being in control. That strain was evident when Donald Trump recently suffered a cognitive slip, referring to the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, as the President of the United States. Even the Iranian military has begun openly mocking this behavior. They've issued statements in English telling the White House that wars are won on the ground, not through tweets and social media posts. Adversaries are watching a leadership team that mistakes its own governors for its president. The fear of a calculated American response is being replaced by the perception of an erratic leadership in decline. As the US and Iran remain locked in this cycle, the geopolitical focus is shifting toward the nations watching from the sidelines. China is moving to fill the void. As the US drains its resources and reputation, Beijing is stepping into the region with offers of humanitarian assistance and diplomatic mediation. Russia is also seeing the benefit. Every American bomb dropped in this unwinnable conflict is hardware and political capital that cannot be used elsewhere. For Iran, the goal is now within reach. They're banking on the idea that the economic and political cost will eventually force the US military to leave the Gulf entirely. After 3 weeks of economic blockade and stalled military strikes, the balance of power in the Middle East is being redrawn, and Washington is no longer the one holding the pen.